Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. My name is Jesse Milestone, and I did it! Guys, I finally saw Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse, like you've all been telling me to do, and oh man, I did not regret it. So, the title of this video, Brilliance Breeds Regret. We gotta talk about the brilliance before we get to the regret. Now, I'm gonna try to keep this low on the spoiler spectrum. There are gonna be a couple. Nothing major, nothing like, oh my god, earth-shattering plot twist I didn't know was gonna happen. So, hopefully. But I am gonna just touch on a couple of things in it, but this will mostly be spoiler-free, so in case you're like me and weirdly haven't seen this movie yet, don't worry too much. I'm not gonna ruin it for you. So, this is a Lord & Miller film. Those names should sound familiar. If not, we'll get to that later. Written by Phil Lord, produced by Lord & Miller, directed by other people and stuff. So, this, once again, Lord & Miller have demonstrated their incredible propensity for world building. And there's no, that's not just a throwaway statement that I'm making. That's not just an easy, simple, like, oh, they built a good world. Yeah, they built a world that was fun. Hooray. We all remember the Lego movie, of course. And now, one of the things that Lord & Miller do well with world building, if you go back and look at the Lego movie, sorry, this is going to have Lego movie spoilers, is they create a reality in which these Lego people exist in their functional world, and they build a second reality on top of it, the one where a human being is actually tinkering with the Legos and is responsible for some of this. And that is a big thing to layer those two things on top of each other. And in doing so, you're creating a lot of rules that you have to follow in your own world. And they do. That's a thing they do really, really well. So we go into the Spiderverse now. And once again, you have some odd rules. And now it's really funny. They lay the groundwork for the rules of this world from the very beginning. I mean, before they even start the film, before they're even rolling the intro credits, when they just have all of the production companies and distribution companies, etc., popping up on the screen, they're already glitching out. They're already laying the groundwork for what we can expect from this film. They're already demonstrating to us that what we're going to see is a retake on something we've seen before, right? A remix, if you will, on things we've already seen. So that already great. Now the way they set up the opening with this, let's go through the backstory. Oh wait, just kidding. Let's go through the backstory again. Every time they introduce a new Spider person. It's a beautiful acknowledgement, which again allows them to play that much more. Is they're coming right up to you and they're saying, hey, we understand what came before this film. We understand we're inheriting somebody else's story. We're inheriting somebody else's material. We respect that. Here's canon. Here you go. Now we're gonna tinker around and do what we want and mash things together and throw things at the wall. And that is just... they do it so... I mean, that right there, like, for me, that, like, you already know the story thing that they did with the various characters was a gesture of respect to the fans. First of all, and done in such a great double-sided way of, like, if you don't already know the story, here, let's recap, you know, just in case you're a person who isn't huge into Spider-Man and doesn't know some of these things, this is what you're missing. And then, but again, it's also respectful because they start with, you already know, so if you do already know, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm on board. This is something, I don't know, just something about that moment, for me, read as really respectful to Spider-Man fans and new viewers alike, which is not an easy thing to do when you're taking something with that much weight. Let me give this to a new audience who maybe doesn't know everything they need to know. Here, let me feed this to an existing audience who wants to feel respected and not like I'm taking something away from them and building it from scratch, but then I'm respecting the things that came before it. So I loved that right there. The next thing for me I love about their world building is the way they incorporate their humor into it. They make it clear what to expect comedy-wise early on, what kind of physicality to expect. You know, we have people in very old superhero cartoonish ways getting thrown around in ways that they could not ever possibly survive, and yet they do. We're going to incorporate that physical humor, that beating the shit out of somebody over and over again, as well as a lot of it's the way they handle the jokes. A lot of so this is something that I watched a really great video on. It's called Bothos, is when you undercut the reality of a movie by putting something in that just doesn't make sense or doesn't really exist and is funny because of that. Lord and Miller just avoid doing any of that entirely. The stuff they do is the reversal of expectations with a lot of physical slapstick, and then all the jokes they make are internal, are contained, they make sense with the characters, they make sense with the movie. They're not like these jokey, making fun of the characters or anything. It works tonally well with the film, and they set themselves up really, they really do physical humor incredibly well. They use it as a way to undercut moments. They set up a serious moment, they undercut it with physical humor. Now, what I will say is they don't do this at the wrong time, which certain films, The Last Jedi, have done. They don't make jokes during, you have again the moments all in the beginning of all the physical humor of the Spidey people flying around and Miles Morales making a lot of mistakes and hitting a lot of things and failing sometimes at certain things. What they don't do is when he comes into his own and sort of actualizes, that they don't have a moment in there where, he still messes up and flies into a wall. They understand what they're doing. They're building this moment. They're adding the gravitas. They're making you feel for this character. They're not undercutting that by still making him into a buffoon. They understand. They recognize we've graduated past that. We've moved beyond that. Now we have something whole and complete. So I love that. I love they play within, they create then their characters, their alternate Spiderverse characters, and adhere to a strict set of rules for each of those characters. Each of those characters move in a different way, have a different background and purpose, and the way they would, just little subtle things like the Japanese Spidey eating candy while she, floats around in a robot, little things like that. The crazy cartoonish props that Spider-Pig get to use. The one thing I will say, that where I thought they took it a little too far for me with the joke, I could have stood to have Spider-Pig just be a one-off and he doesn't stay, he glitches out. Oh man, I guess he's gone, However, the way they incorporated that, the way they utilized him, I eventually got on board because they stayed true to what they had created. They put him in, they wrote him in as a joke, as comic relief, but they stuck with the character. They didn't just ignore him or suddenly make him act normal or something like that. They stuck with the character. Same thing, they can draw this absurdly shaped Kingpin, in a very comic booky way, and just believe in it. They don't comment on it. They don't detract from it in any way. They just believe it. They just own it. And that's the thing, is their belief in what they're doing allows us to suspend our disbelief and just go along for the ride. It's an animated film, so they obviously have a lot of room to play in there. And the other thing I will say is they worked in an animated medium and they absolutely made the best of it. The way they handled the choreography, if you will, of the fight in the Collider is, just talk about making the best of the situation you've created, using this world to its fullest. I loved the way they handled that visually. I loved the way they played around in this medium and did all those things. I had another thought. Oh yeah, the other thing I really enjoyed, I know some people didn't love this, I know SC Reviews has made his eyes hurt a lot, but I appreciated the way that they did a lot of the art. For me, I saw that and I was like, the way they would have certain lines on places in people's faces and dots in other places, for me was clearly paying homage to traditional comic book style art. I thought it was really interesting the way they added texture to the universe by some of the by adding focus, basically. You don't see this in animation a lot. Usually when you have something in animation, it's all fully in focus. You would have Miles at his desk and the background would be out of focus as you would with a real shot. So I thought it added a lot of texture, a lot of great, 3Ding in a 2D world to the film. So I loved all of that. I thought it was all really, really excellent. I had very few criticisms. I also, the motif of Spider-Man always gets back up. How brilliantly handled, how beautifully handled, and how powerfully done, because it wasn't just, and that's what they made it clear about, it wasn't just this one man getting back up on his own, but they made a beautiful message. It's an animated film, kids are going to see this and stuff like that, so it was a great message about support system, about family, the family that you have and the family that you choose, and loving both of them and understanding their roles in your lives, which was, to me, was great. It did a wonderful job, the way that I think that The Last Jedi, I don't we're going to get around to this in a sec, really failed at making the Force feel like it was for everyone. Spider-Man made Spider-Man feel like he was for everyone. You know, obviously, okay, not everyone gets bitten by a radioactive spider, but the idea that everyone can be a hero was handled so much better in this than a lot of things I've seen before. Where it wasn't cheesy or stupid or like bash you over the head with it. It was overt, but it was also like, because it followed itself through. It didn't just tell you, anyone can be a hero and whatever. It followed itself through by starting with somebody who wasn't a hero, who doubted himself, and who used the belief that others had in him to believe in himself eventually and rise to those heights, to create a really positive message about what you can achieve if you have faith in yourself. So all of those things I thought were just incredible. Now here's the regret, right? Here's the regret. Obviously, like as I mentioned a little bit, it's what we've demonstrated is that Disney at some capacity, I mean, obviously Marvel does have a certain amount of autonomy, and this was also Sony Pictures, so they're the Marvel, the Disney enterprise had very little to do with this. But that it shows that there is still some creativity in cinema today. And that's, side note, I think Lord and Miller do some of the best humor of any writers right now. It doesn't ever feel stale. It doesn't feel like they're reusing things. It feels like they're just, Phil Lord's just got it. He just, boom, comedy there, done, owns it. So, aside from some of the things one of the things that bothered me was, okay, we see how uninventive Disney has been in the Star Wars universe, and that is upsetting because we obviously have people out here that can do those things well. So the specific regret I'm feeling is Solo. My feeling now, even more surely than I thought before, is that Lord and Miller were fired from the project for doing something akin to what they did with Spider-Verse, which is, hey, we have this precious source material. We're not going to pretend that we're the experts and that we're telling you how the things were, that this is Solo's story, but that we're going to make what you understand as the audience to be a fan film. Our fun imagining of these characters. This is our imagining of these characters, not us telling you this is their backstory. So I feel like if they had actually been allowed to complete this project, we would have had that, and it would have been unambiguous too. I mean, they really pick a tone and stick to it. I don't think there was a lot of ambiguity about it. I think it would have been crystal clear that what they had chosen to do was take these characters and have fun with them, have a good time. I think we would have had a lot more organic laughs. I think it would have been chock full of comedy. I think it would have been fun and interesting. And I think because of the way they can lay down the rules of their world and play within them, there are certain things that would be not canon or not really Star Wars that we would be able to forgive, understanding the kind of movie that they were making. And then so now that I think because of that, Solo suffered even more in the reshooting process, because you had some of that from them. You had these elements from Lord and Miller that, again, they've built their own world, they've built their own tone, and Ron Howard is not playing within the rules of this world. So now you have a lot of these tonal contrasts, things that really bothered me, that didn't really seem to make sense, not a lot of continuity of character in a lot of ways. And I think that Solo actually could have been a lot of fun if we had just let these guys do what they're clearly so good at, rather than give it back to the guy who never has taken a risk in his life, So that's my regret, seeing that. I had that feeling watching the film too. I was like, God, what could have been? But if you have not seen Into the Spider-Verse, I highly recommend it. It is a ton of fun. It is a lot of laughs, and it's just a really enjoyable superhero film. Great animation in it. Great job using modern technology while still making it feel like our beloved, Spider-Man animation. An excellent cutscene at the end, by the way, if you didn't stay to the end of the credits. Oh my God, great scene down there. So that's all. Go see it. Fuck Disney, Star Wars, and the end. If you like what you're hearing, there's a button for that. Make sure you hit the notifications bell so you're getting notifications as well as subscribing. And let me know what you think. Did you like Into the Spider-Verse? Did you not? Could Lord and Miller have saved Solo? Comment away below, and we'll talk to you soon. By we, I mean me, because it's just me.